Welcome to LaQuita's Toolbox, where we deliver relevant content in the form of tools that empower entrepreneurs to elevate personally and professionally. Good is only good until greater is envisioned. You know there's another level in you. Here we discuss the tools to get you there. Lean in as LaQuita and her guests present you with strategies and insight for unlocking your full potential to realize your boldest dream. Welcome back to another amazing episode of LaQuita's Toolbox. I am your host, LaQuita Monley, and I have an amazing guest in the studio with me today. And you know what, guys? The guests I have in the studio with me today, we have a lot of things in common. And one of them is we share the same first name. So I'm going to figure out how we're going to make sure you know the difference between me and her other than our voice. We'll have some fun with that today, you know, and it's so wonderful how we met. We met through a mutual friend, Miss Lachelle Atkins, America's Supermom. And just today would not have happened without the power of social networking and collaborations. And that's how you're going to grow and expand your network, your business, your brand, everything that you do. We cannot do things alone. No man is an island, amen. But we all have to work together in order to accomplish the things that God has purposed for us to accomplish. But before we jump into today's topic, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Our sponsors are Covenant Press. They are a faith-based Christian apparel and accessory shop where we as believers can shop until we drop for clothing and accessories that allow us to wear the message of the love of Jesus Christ. Go out to www.covenant-press.com. Take a look around. They have some great things there, but don't click off those pop-ups too quick because they hold some amazing discount codes that you can apply at checkout to receive great discounts and savings. Again, go to www.covenant-press.com. Hey, Miss LaQuita, how are you today? So I'm going to be LaQuita M, and I think you're going to be LaQuita P. Let's go with that.
Hey, I can roll with that. Thank you so much, LaQuita M, for having me. It has been a pleasure. And I tell you, I love that America's Supermom because I don't know how she does it with 15 children, but she has the ability to connect people all over the place and still be mom and be involved with her 15 children. I love it. So thank you for having me here.
Oh, no problem. No problem. And I have to 100% agree with you about America's Supermom. She is doing some fabulous things. Listen, before I met her, I thought I was wonderful. I mean, I am wonderful. Let's be clear. I'm wonderful. Yes, but I thought I was doing the doggone thing with 5 kids. Yeah. And then I met her and I was like, you know what? Let me get on over here and sit down somewhere.
I can't touch it. I have my 3. And that's it. They would say 3 and them done.
That's right. You know what I'm saying? And mine are all, grown and gone. She still has children in the house and she is doing fabulous things in her network, in her business. She's got, I want to take a moment and drop a whole plug right here for her season 2 of her show that is featured on the Zandra TV network. So if you're not plugged in with Lachelle, which if you're a LaQuita's Toolbox follower, you should be because she's been on the show several times. Her new show is out as well as her new book as well. So Miss LaQuita, I'm going to let you because you are the publisher and we're going to talk about that because that's what this series is all about. Where I am highlighting in this series amazing authors who have made great contribution to myself and my personal growth and development. And not only are you an author, LaQuita, but you're also a publisher and you have a fabulous story to share. So I'm gonna go ahead on and sit in my corner. I got my something to write with and something to write on, as the LaQuita's Toolbox audience knows. Get something to write with and something to write on. And I'm ready to take notes. I've heard your story before, but every time I hear it, it's like, wow. You know what? I have no excuses. I got to get up and keep moving. So, sis, please go ahead and officially introduce
your company, your brand, and let the LaQuita's Toolbox audience know about all the fabulous things that you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Before I do that, I do want to plug Lachelle's book, Do You Want to Be Whole? 7 Steps to Living Mask Free by America's Supermom. This is a part that can go in the toolbox. So if your listeners have not gotten this for the toolbox, they should get it. It is an amazing story. It's a workbook, and it's Lachelle's story intertwined into. So she shows you what she did, how she got through it, and how you can too. So I wanted to plug that. But my name is LaQuita Parks, and I am the CEO and founder of PayProV Publishing. And PayProV means pain, progress, victory, because without pain, there is no progress. And without progress, there can be no victory. So I help people take their stories from a thought to a realization. And LaQuita M., if you had asked me my why just 4 short days ago, my answer would have been different. But since I am the victim of medical childhood trauma at the hands of a nurse, in the midst of my story and in the midst of creating PayProV Publishing, although I told my story, I never told the name of the hospital. So I was very quiet with that. And in some ways, from what I've gotten from other people, it seems like I was protecting them. So 4 days ago, I decided to no longer protect them. So Grady Memorial Hospital in Atlanta, Georgia, they have some owning up to do. So now that's who hurt. I'm the victim of medical childhood trauma at that hospital. So they didn't protect me. And so as I grew older, I have gone through, it's been 49 years of pain and suffering. So I don't know a day without pain in 49 years. Back in 2019, I had to go to the Mayo Clinic. I had 4 trips to the Mayo Clinic, November, December of 2019, and January and February of 2020. My last trip to the Mayo Clinic, the doctor told me, while you're not dying, you are suffering.
Wow.
And before that visit, when I was there in December, I started getting phone calls. And, sometimes we don't understand why God is navigating things the way that he's navigating. And we just go with it. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we fight against the grain, but we go with it. Excuse me. But I started getting people to call me and say, hey, can you show me how you wrote your book? And I'm at the Mayo Clinic. And so I'm thinking, I'm at the Mayo Clinic. You're asking me to help you do something. I'm at the Mayo Clinic. You should be asking me how I'm doing. But I didn't say that. I said it for myself. But what did I do? I started helping people. So while I was at the Mayo Clinic, I started publishing books. Didn't have a publishing company then. I was a mentor and a coach. Didn't even think about it. That was not a part of something I wanted to do. But when the doctor told me, although you are suffering, you're not dying, I didn't hear anything else. I thought, this can't be my life. So he said everything that I'm going through, it wasn't going to get any better. As you grow older, your body starts to break down and all these things start to happen. But I continued to publish stories even in the midst of this. And one day I said, I knew that I was not going to be able to go back to my corporate job. That was going to be a done deal, because I needed to be able to create and control my own environment. I needed to be able to, not to elevate all day, or to not be able to sit up sometimes, or I had to lay down. Whatever the situation is, my body would determine what I would be able to do from day to day. So going back to my corporate job was not going to be something I was going to be able to do. So I had a friend to say, and this was after I published the second book at the Mayo Clinic, I had a friend to say, why don't you just do publishing on top of all of your other list of things that you do? And I said, well, no, I don't really want to do that. And she was like, well, why not? You might as well. So I said, okay, well, I'll do it under the mentoring program that I have. And she was like, well, not really the same thing, but whatever, you should do this. And so as I was writing, I said, well, maybe I'll come up with a name. So I was thinking about names and just kind of throwing it over. I was like, oh, it is what it is. And one of my authors, whose book I published at the Mayo Clinic, said, what about PayProV? And I said, we were driving in the car and I looked and I said, Pay Pro V. And I was like, no, that doesn't roll off the tongue. So 3 minutes later, because I'm still thinking Pay Pro V. So I looked and I said, well, what does that mean? What does Pay Pro V mean? And he said, it means pain, progress, victory. And a light bulb came on. And I said, that's the story of my life. So I started Pay Pro V Publishing, where I help people take their stories from a thought to a realization. And although I was a little fussy, in my head with people telling me, help me with this, help me with that. And I found that it took my mind off of what I was going through. It took my mind off of the pain. It took my mind, the pain was still there, but we become that, LaQuita M, we become what we focus on. And so I wasn't focusing on the pain. I wasn't focusing on the diagnosis. I was focusing on whoever's project I was working on at that time. So honestly, Pay Pro V Publishing was started from a totally selfish standpoint. It was started as a way to help me cope with what I was going, because for the first time in my life, I needed to accept the fact that there was no fix for me. I needed to accept the fact that there was no reversing the 15 surgeries that I had on my right leg and foot. I had to accept the fact that there was no turning around the fact that I now had several connective tissue diseases because of all of the different surgeries that happened to my body. It reconstructed, realigned, readjusted my body. So I had I couldn't, there was no fix for it. So Pay Pro V Publishing gave me an opportunity to take my mind away from that, but also use my story to let people know that you can do what you need to do, because God has already equipped us with everything we need to do what he needs us to do, no matter where we are, whether we're physically, financially, mentally, emotionally capable. God has already given that to us, because my walk is not your walk, LaQuita M. So I can be able to do what God has gifted me to do, just like he can gift you to do what you do in whatever position you're in. And so I learned that through Pay Pro V Publishing. So, it's been an amazing journey. I started officially, because I was publishing while I was at the Mayo Clinic in February of 2020. I officially started Pay Pro V Publishing. I launched Pay Pro V Publishing in August of 2020. And since that time, I have completed multiple anthologies, including 2 veterans community projects that I've done for anthologies. I've worked with, hundreds of, well, I won't say hundreds, but over 100 authors to help them take their story from a thought to a realization, and in such a short amount of time. And every story is different. I'm telling you, some of these stories have me in tears. Some of these stories have me laughing. And some of these stories have me looking kind of backwards at some people. Like, okay, really? It's so there. I've witnessed the breakthrough. I've seen grown men cry. I put the proof in their hand and seen grown men cry. And people who have been waiting to get their stories out. I work with people who've been told that nobody's going to care about your story. Why you want to, why nobody's going to read it, nobody's going to buy it, and people who have crushed a person's hopes. Well, I care about your story. And so the whole thing is, you can write your story, but it's up to you what you want to do with it. You can publish it on Amazon, and you can't expect for it to sit on Amazon and it sell itself, because only people who know that it's there will go there. So there's work involved, but taking your story, we all have a story. And I believe in my whole heart that there is somebody always waiting on the other end of your story to get healing from their story. They're just waiting. And, LaQuita, when we read stories and it's like, okay, you know what? Sometimes I wake up and I need something. I've said my prayers, I've read my Bible, I've talked to my circle, but I feel blah. I feel like, there's something that I'm missing. I need that some, how you feeling, LaQuita? I don't know. I'm feeling kind of blah. not depressed. I'm not in pain. I'm just feeling kind of blah. And then
Mm-hmm.
you're going through your day and you get that inspirational text message. Or you
Yes.
get that, you're reading the book, or you're reading the book and you're reading the story and you go, wow. And then all of a sudden that blindness goes away and the sunshine is replaced. It's replaced with sunshine. And it's like, this is just what I needed. This is just what I needed. And that happens a lot. Those are those tiny breakthrough moments that help you get through your day, because God puts
Yes.
people here, because God tells us you have to bear one another's burdens. So
This
if
is it.
God didn't intend for us to have people, if he didn't intend for there to be people, we just need to know who's in our circle. If he didn't intend for that
Come
to
on
be, then
now.
he wouldn't have said for us to bear his burdens. So, but I got to know you. You got to know me so that I can feel
Mm-hmm.
comfortable to bear your burden. And in some
This
ways,
is
in
it.
many ways, LaQuita M, my clients are coming to me with their stories so that I can help them bear that burden.
Come on, that's
And
real good. Listen,
love it. I
like
love it.
this, you have shared some amazing, amazing tips and strategies. You've shared some amazing inspiration and motivation. Listen, LaQuita's Toolbox audience, I told you guys, when I heard her story the first time, I was like, what is wrong with you? Get up and get yourself together. Shake that off, because you have nothing to complain about. Like, in the midst of someone sharing something like that, like those words, I don't know how I would have took that. You're though you're not dead or dying, you're suffering.
Yes, you are suffering.
I mean, that is a
You are
truth,
suffering.
but like, he could have had a
Mhm.
little bit better bedside manner, but it was like, all right, he just laid it
He
out
was
there.
very kind. I was like, huh?
Okay.
He was very kind. And
And
he was not the first. He was the now I highly recommend the Mayo Clinic. It's an amazing. They're very thorough. But he was not the first doctor to tell me that. So he was the doctor. The Mayo Clinic was the was the breakthrough. They gave me the additional diagnosis that I now have, and what my life is like, and what is will probably be like, but God, you know what I'm saying?
amen.
So,
Amen.
but when I was still searching for somebody to fix me, fix my leg, I went to an orthopedic doctor in Riverdale, Georgia. And he, when I went in, it was very strange, because when I went in, they didn't take me into the examination room. They took me into the doctor's office. And I thought, well, I haven't even seen the doctor, so why are we coming in here? And so he was sitting down with my chart and he said, tell me about yourself. And I introduced him, and he's like, tell me your history. So he was asking about, why I was there, what happened with my leg. And so I was sharing the experience, or sharing the story with him. And so he got up from his sitting position, and he kind of moved over to the side, and he kind of sat on the credenza. And as he was just so involved in my story. And then he looked at me and he said, "It was you." And I said, "It was me." And I said, I don't, what do you mean? He said, "You were the hush." And I said, "I was the hush." He said, "You were the hush." He said, "In 1973, I was a visiting doctor at Grady Hospital." He said, "And something had happened." He said, "We didn't know what happened, but it was like a hush. And we've seen that before when something something major happens, there's a hush. So they put a gag order on everybody." He said, "You were the hush." The timeline was the same. And I believed him, LaQuita,
Yeah.
because several years before that, as a child of 11 years old, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. When my mother took me to the rheumatologist, she came into the room and she said, "Do I know you? Have you been here before?" And my mom said no. And she said, she looked at my records and she excused herself. She said, "I'll be back." And in my little 11-year-old mind, it was probably, like 10 minutes, but it seemed like forever. She came back into the room. She said, "I know where I know you from." And she told my mother that she was an intern at the hospital when this happened, at Grady Hospital, when this happened to my leg. And they called them all in a meeting, and they told them if anybody spoke about what happened, they would make sure they would not practice medicine in the state of
Wow.
Georgia again. That
Wow.
was when I was 11 years old. This woman was my rheumatologist until I was 18, and I aged out because I was no longer juvenile. So with what he said as an adult, coupled with what she said when I was 11 years old, and here we have the Mayo Clinic doctor who have done all of these tests, all of these thorough tests to tell me why you're not suffering, why you're not dying, you are suffering. All of the pieces fit. And when the doctor told me that I was the hush, he took me he said, let's go into the examination room. He examined my legs and he said, now I was there to see if he could fix it. He said, there are going to be doctors who are going to tell you that they can fix what happened to you. They can't. Nobody can fix it. And there will be doctors who will want to try. Don't let them, because they will just be practicing. He said, there's going to come a time when you will not be able to walk again.
Wow.
He said, what do you like to do for fun? And at that time, I like to do, there was the Michael Jackson Wii game out, and I like to dance. He said, all I can tell you is to keep dancing until you are no longer able to dance.
Wow.
That crushed me.
Wow.
I went out to my car. I sat in my car and I cried. I mean, the Bible says you rent your clothes and, you're heaving and you're sobbing uncontrollably.
Yes.
That was me.
Yes.
But that was the cleansing, because at that point, I knew that he had been the most honest doctor that I had seen since any time since I took over my own medical care.
Wow. And
I was like, okay. And then going to the Mayo Clinic and finding out that there is no fix for this. There is no fix. So, Pay Pro V Publishing is also a way for me to keep dancing until I can no longer dance.
Wow. Wow. Out of the things that the Lord allows us to go through, beautiful things of birth, because your story is, I don't want to say tragic, but I can't figure out another word. Like, what was done to you by the nurse, and to further heap coal on top of it, the length the hospital was willing to go through to cover it up, and the things that you've had to go through your entire life. In the midst of all of that pain, you being able to birth out a publishing company while yet receiving, as you said, you had heard it before, and they're at the Mayo Clinic, they're giving you, the definite, now I'm getting this diagnosis that I'm accepting a diagnosis that I'm not going to get any better, and there's nothing anyone can do about it other than to practice, because we have to realize doctors are practicing.
That's right.
They're practicing on us daily. That's not a dig.
Right.
That's just the truth. But if
it's the truth,
they're practicing, and so you're getting this message that's like a death sentence, literally. And out of that, you birth something that gives life to people. And not only does writing a book give life to the author, but it gives life to the reader.
That's right.
Because as authors, and we're sharing our story, the purpose of sharing the story, you might want to make a little money, but it really, truly, a person with a purpose, they're sharing their story so that they can help the reader, in hopes that when the reader picks up the book, that there's something that is shared on the pages of the book that will help that reader reach a new level. And so through your publishing and through your coaching, you're giving life to millions. So what the enemy meant for bad, the Lord definitely has worked it out for your good. You've helped 100+ authors get their story from their head and their heart to the pages of a book. But out of those 100+ authors, how many readers have you blessed? Countless.
Exactly. I have no idea.
Countless.
We'll never know.
People. Exactly. Countless people are being blessed from Pay Per View Publishing, and I think the name is quite appropriate. Pain, Progress, Victory. It is very appropriate. I always wondered what it meant, and then when you said it, I was like, well,
somebody wrote
that's pretty powerful.
I love it. There was a press release that was done a few days ago, And so the person that wrote the press release, he had Atlanta's own LaQuita Parks is the CEO of Pain, Progress, Victory. And so I called him and I was like, wait, I'm not the CEO of Pay-Pro-V Publishing. He said, did you read the whole article? And I was like, no. It's like, can you read the whole article first? And so when I read the article, because of the struggles I've had in my life, Pay-Pro-V Publishing, Pain, Progress, Victory, I was like, you know what? He was like, you are. He was like, you are. So when people, LaQuita, I'm a no excuses kind of person, and I know that things happen. There are reasons, now, not excuses, but I am a no excuses kind of person. If I cannot do it, if I cannot do something, I'm going to let you know. I apologize, but I can't get that. That means that my pain level is elevated beyond my normal level of pain, and I function every day between a 8 and a 9 in pain. So that's my normal pain level. So if I'm at a 10, that means that it's pretty bad. And I often have people to say, well, well, you don't, because I don't look like I'm in pain, and I'm like, what
how
is
does
that
that
supposed to look like?
You're like, what does that look
right?
like?
Am I supposed to? Right. Am I not supposed to wash my face? And I have a caregiver, and I said to my caregiver one day, I said that something has got to change. Either I'm going to get worse or I have to get better. And in that better for me is getting back to a normal level of pain. So my Mayo Clinic days was an elevation of what I was used to. And it was a continued elevation for months and months. And, most people don't end up at the Mayo Clinic 4 times, every month for 4 months. Most people don't end up there. But it had, I was going through some things where my normal level of pain and discomfort had exceeded itself. And my doctors could not determine why. They couldn't determine, okay, well, here's the level of function where she's been, for years, and now we can't understand why not. So the Mayo Clinic was able to determine with all of, they have more advanced testing and more thoroughness. So they were able to determine, some of the things that were going on, and all roads lead back to, the what happened to me as a child, and then there's the PTSD behind it. And a lot of times people don't realize, and I didn't either until I went to therapy. It's like, you have PTSD. And I was like, no, I don't. But as I thought about it, can you imagine what I go through every time I know I have to go to the doctor? I have an appointment tomorrow where I have to get some tests done on my legs. The tests are painful. They're not painful for a person with normal legs. They're painful for me because I already have a continued pain level. So it only increases my pain. So I'm not looking forward to it, but I have to go. Can you imagine what I go through when I have to get a shot? I don't even do shots, but when I have to get blood drawn, anything that involves a needle. I was jabbed in my thigh with a needle that poisoned the bone in my leg. It struck the nerve and poisoned the bone in my leg. So can you imagine what I go through when I go to the store every day, when I have to go buy shoes? I have one foot that's a size 9.5 and the other foot that's a 6.5. Do you imagine what I go through? So it's more than the physical pain. There is the mental, there's the emotional, there's the financial. When you say I operate in the black until I have a doctor's appointment. So then I have to operate in the red because I have to pay for this. So with Pay-Pro-V Publishing, enabling people, or not enabling, having the ability to help people to write their stories in the midst of their own trauma comes easy for me because of my own trauma. So I understand what they're going through. I understand when they don't have that support that they need. I have an amazing support system, but LaQuita, support don't always come from family.
You better say that again.
It doesn't always come from family. I got a message from my uncle, and I don't know if he'll see this, if he'll ever listen to it or not, but I'm the one that'll send it to him. I got a message from my uncle today, who I sent the link to an interview that I did where I shared some of my story yesterday. And he said he didn't know. He didn't know. And I found myself saying, now, why didn't he know? Why didn't he know? And I can make all the excuses in the world why he didn't know, but he didn't know because somebody didn't tell him, or he wasn't invested in the family enough to know.
Mm.
So, why didn't he know? And I might say he's on my daddy's side. So that's probably why he didn't know, because my daddy wasn't active. You know what I'm saying? My daddy was in the
Right.
military too, but we have a great relationship now, but that could be why he didn't know. But the support that we get will come from people we don't know who didn't grow up with
Mhm.
us. And they, so with pay-per-view publishing, enjoying watching people get that story out, watching them,
Yes.
work on that story and get it out and get that published book in their hand. And it's a sense of accomplishment to do with that story what they want to do with it. It's an amazing thing to watch, and it does not get old. It's new for me every single time. Every single
That's how you
time.
know. That's how you know that this is your passion. This is your purpose. That it gives you that same or heightened level of excitement every single time. You're flowing right
Yeah.
in the zone, in the space that God specifically designed for you. And I can't wait to see, how the Lord continues to bless you and increase you and bless others through pay-per-view publishing, because I mean, you said a mouthful right there at the end. Someone, the people that you're able to help in some of their experiences, you understand what it's like to have to push through and do things in the midst of your own trauma. And if
Mhm.
you haven't had that experience, I I can't share it with you. Like you just have to have
Right.
had that type of lived experience in order
Mhm.
to be able to help someone bring something to birth. And that's what you're doing. You're like,
Mhm.
you're helping people bring to birth an an addition or a piece or a part of their purpose as they're getting their bringing their books into a reality and helping them get it into the hands of the people that God called for them to reach. So I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. You briefly mentioned right there that you were a military child. So my hat's off to you
Yes,
and
I am.
all the military children.
And I wasn't, my dad was in the military, but we didn't go through any of the moving and living on base and all that. We didn't go through all of that, any of that actually. But so my dad and I have built a relationship over the years. I believe that what happens in our childhood, what happened between my mom and my dad, was not my business.
Mm-hmm.
It was not my
Mm-hmm.
business. Whatever happened with them, whatever happened within their relationship was not my business.
Mm-hmm.
What happened with my relationship with my father, it is my business. But
Mm-hmm.
as a child, I had no control over that. That was him.
Right.
He had
Right.
control over it. As an adult, I get to choose. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, I get to choose what relationships I want and what relationships I don't. And I don't see it necessary for me to hold my dad's feet to the fires of his past when it had
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with me.
Mm-hmm.
That was about whatever he
That's
was
real
going
good.
on, what was going on. So I don't have a problem with the relationship with him. So I'm very honest with him in the relationship. Very open with him in the relationship. I do know that I get a lot of my desires for community and my philanthropy opportunities. I know I get that sense from him. He was the NAACP president for 15 years in his area. He is an advocate for community. He is one of those power to the people type of people. He's the one. There is he in his community, there's a drug house across the street. No, y'all not doing that here. We're rallying the troops. We're going to get you out of here. So he's
Oh, I
one of
like
those
that.
going
Oh, Dad.
into the in the community where there are gangs at ease with each other at war and going in to mediate that. That's who, he used those military skills to better his neighborhood. He's an advocate for children. He's constantly, fighting for the cause. And, what are you doing for your community? And he supports. He's always, I'm proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing. Sometimes it's like pulling teeth because it's still teaching him. Sometimes we have to teach people how to treat us, including our parents.
Yes.
My mom's deceased now, but my dad has a show and he's bringing the show back, and he sent me the details. And so, of course, I want you to be a guest on my show. So when he sends it, I say, okay, he got my name. We do a capital Q in our name, right?
Yes.
So he gets a bet. He calls me and says, I messed up. He's like, lady is on the show and I spelled her name wrong. I said, well, who did you send it to? He said, I just sent it to us. I said, well, fix her name and resend it. If you didn't send it out to the world, you just sent it to us. And I said, and while you're fixing her name, could you fix my name too? I was like, it's a crime and a shame that my own daddy don't know how to spell my name.
Daddy said, I got to get it together. He got to get it together. He make those fixes and get him resent out.
Right. I was like, it's not a big deal. I wasn't going to say nothing. I was just going to let it go. But if you fixing somebody else's name, go ahead and fix my name. But, with him being a veteran, I always, with everything I'm doing, I like to let him know, what I'm doing. And so I started this veterans project, veterans community project. I have a client, and we are still working on his project because he got deployed overseas. So he's in South Korea, and he'll be there, I think, for 3 or 5 years. So he started on a book project, and went right before the anniversary of 9/11. He came to me and said, hey, I wanted to do something. What do you think about, doing this project? And I thought about it. I was like, what? I think that'll be a good project for 9/11, the 20th anniversary. But when I looked, and it was going to be for veterans, of course. And so when I looked at it for 9/11, I said, well, a lot of the 9/11, they were first responders, even though the military was involved, there were the firemen and they were the ones first on the scene. So I said, you know what? I still would like to do this, but instead of it's in recognition of the 20th anniversary, but let's do it for Veterans Day. And then I said, you know what, but I don't want to charge the veterans anything, and I don't want to keep the money. So let's find an organization for the money to go to. So I partnered with the VFW in my area. And so to donate the money. So the first year I did the project, it was called Suited for Service. And I had veterans to submit their stories. And that was the first one that I did. And then, so I was like, okay, it was a different experience. I'd never done that before. Some veterans I interviewed, but they didn't want me to use their stories. They just wanted it. They just needed the outlet to talk and to share, but they didn't want me to use the story. And I ran into that a lot. They would tell me their story, but I couldn't use the story. So I was like, well, how am I going to do the book if nobody wants to use their story? So I decided it didn't matter how many people said yes, I was going to do the book. If it was 10 people, if it was 12 people, it didn't matter. I was going to do the book because I was committed to do that. So the first book, Suited for Service, I partnered with the Kroger company. One of their managers was in the book, and Kroger partnered, and we were able to purchase enough books and to sell enough books to donate $1,000 the first year to the Veteran for Foreign Affairs.
Wow.
And so then then we went to the second year, Unknown Battlefields. And the one thing I found doing the first book was that there were a lot of people who I talked to when I was interviewing the veteran. Oftentimes there was the spouse was there too. And they told their story. And I talked to a mother who told her story when there was the war in Iraq, and then she got a call, they couldn't find her son, and she thought her son was dead, and what she went through. And especially not wanting her son to go. And he was like, he had an overwhelming desire to serve his country. And she talked to me about her experience. Well, when I put together Unknown Battlefields, The Footsteps of a Soldier, I wanted to hear the other stories too. So not just veterans, but veteran spouses and veteran, there is a woman who's in the book. She tells the story. She was there when they caught Osama bin Laden. She was there, and she talked about them getting, having to get them out get them out of the country, get them back to the United States. And she was I forgot her title, but she worked for the military for 30 years. And three of the people that were there, they were killed, and she
Wow.
got out. So she could have been one of those. Who knows? There is a woman in here who tells her story of what she went through as a veteran wife, and having to move from place to place, and all of the, even, having to refurnish, and you can take this, but you can't take that. And you're in a small dwelling, and, having to fly in the jet lag, and just everything that she went through. And sometimes it was good, sometimes it wasn't, missing her family tremendously, getting sick, and having to learn a new language. So she talks about that in her book. And then there are the stories of combat. And one guy's name is Marvis Cox. I call it the soul. Every book has a soul. The soul of the book. His story is the soul of the book. And he talks about being injured we call it a setup. But he was injured, and he was also the driver for the lieutenant, and the lieutenant, asked him to recommend a driver, and he recommended a friend. And they went out on a convoy, and I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but there was an incident, and they were both critically injured. And so the friend lost both his legs.
Wow.
And so Marvis carries that guilt to today. He doesn't share the story of receiving a Purple Heart, because of him. If it were not for his fast actions, his whole platoon would have been killed in action. So he never talks about that. He never talks about receiving a Purple Heart, but he does share the guilt that he feels, that if he had not recommended his friend, he would not. And he still talks to him, and he said sometimes he wonders if he thinks about that, but he doesn't bring it up. So those are the stories in this book. And again, the proceeds from the sale of the book will go to the VFW. So the book is available in hardcover, and it's also available in paper cover. So it's the stories are amazing. There's a story, one guy in here, he was in Vietnam, and he calls it his PTSD story. His story is a little longer, but he talks about how he got PTSD, and he talks about the journey to where he is now. And he called me. He has a podcast show also. His name is David Mills. He called me, and he said, thank you so much for this. He said, nobody else cared about my story. You're the only person that cared about my story. He said, and I know since I've started talking to people and talking in groups about my story, it has actually helped my PTSD.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Our service members and their family have so many amazing stories this year. And you are such a blessing, bringing those stories to light and furthering, helping our military community by donating those proceeds to the VFW, to your local VFW. I know we are a military family as well. My husband did 24 plus years active duty Army, and he has some medals that he talks about. And there's one medal that he received, a Bronze Star, and he never talks about it. He actually won't even acknowledge it because of the circumstances surrounding how he earned that medal. And it's something that even to this day, it's a bittersweet thing for him. Like, yes, it's a prestigious medal, but the story behind the medal that still brings him anger and frustration and guilt and shame behind his battle buddies that didn't make it home, but he made it home, So guys, if you have not had an opportunity to get the book. It's called Unknown Battlefields, The Footsteps of a Soldier. It's available on Amazon. I will have the link for the purchase of the book in the show notes of today's show. Is it available anywhere else other than Amazon?
It's available on Pay Pro V Publishing. If
Okay.
they purchase it through PayPro Publishing, the funds will go to VFW. And if they purchase it through Amazon, then Amazon gets their cut, and then so it's less that will go. So if they purchase it through PayPro Publishing, we can autograph it and send it to them, and the funds will go to VFW.
So let's
So it's
do
this
that.
PayPro Publishing platform.
We'll get that
So
PayPro
either way, just get
Publishing
the
link.
book. Just get
Yeah.
the book. I have. It's been so rewarding. I have been asked to, well, what about? I was interviewing somebody who's a veteran. What about Memorial Day? There's Veterans Day and Memorial Day. You should do one for Memorial Day. And I said, okay, I can do that. So I'm working on one for Memorial Day. If your listeners who are veterans and their families, if they want to share their stories, please reach out to me. There is absolutely no cost for the story. They become published authors. They sign a publishing agreement. They receive the graphics to market the book. So that people will know, hey, my story's in this book, and support this cause. So there's this is the anthology project that veterans and their families are able to submit their stories at no cost.
That is absolutely wonderful. At no cost, and the proceeds from the sale of the book go to a worthy cause there to the local VFW in your area. LaQuita, you are more and more amazing, LaQuita M. Every time I talk to you, more and more amazing. That this has been, I can't even get my words together. This has been one of the most rewarding conversations I have had this year. So thank you so much again for your yes, for agreeing to come into the studio today and speak to me about your journey, sharing your story and your journey to how PayPro Publishing was birthed, the great work that you're doing there with your authors, and for sharing more with the LaQuita's Toolbox community about the great work that you're doing with your local military community, and bringing together these anthologies that are no cost. Anybody that has ever participated in an anthology knows that there's usually a cost to become an author. And so this is a great value in that you get to become an author, share your story and your journey with others, and that the proceeds from the sale of the book go to a worthy cause for our military community. So you don't want to miss that. We're going to have more about LaQuita in our show notes, as well as the link to PayPro Publishing, so that you can get connected with her, become a published author with her. Buy the book, ladies and gentlemen, buy the anthology, and let's continue to support our servicemen and women and their families. But before we go, LaQuita, I want to make sure I honor your time. Is there anything else that you would love to leave with the LaQuita's Toolbox audience today?
Yes, if you are interested in telling your story and you don't know how to start, visit paypropublishing.com. I am doing a 60-day challenge, and that 60-day challenge gives you the tools that you need to write your story and publish your story within 60 days. Those 60 days start from wherever you are. If it starts today, it's today to 60 days. All the tools are there. It also includes a 30-minute strategy session with me, and it's only $223, and you get the tools that you need that are very, very helpful tools. But it doesn't matter who you get to publish your story. I would love to talk to you about that, but tell your story. 100% of everybody living and dead has a story, and everybody's story is different. Everybody's story is powerful. There is power in your story. The only people that you cannot reach with your story are the ones you don't tell. And you cannot tell anybody about your story if you don't share your story. And there is healing. I promise you, there is healing. I'm not going to say it's easy. I'm not going to say it won't hurt, because it will. I won't say it's going to be, I won't say it won't be emotional, because it will be emotional. But the breakthrough, the breakthrough, it's a whole lot more space out in the world for your story to come out than it is inside of you. That's going to manifest itself in depression, in illnesses, in sickness. It's a lot outside, it's too little inside. So share your story, change the world, change, and the world is your circle in the community. Give people an opportunity to know who you are. And that's for your personal story and your business story. You can tell your business story because people connect more with you when they know your history, when they know your why. Your customers will connect more and say, okay, you know what? Oh wow, this soap that she uses is because she made this soap because her mama was sick, and this soap gave her mama comfort because of the milk that it used. It makes her skin silky smooth. That's why she does that. Okay, I'm going to shop with her and buy her book. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. That's my story. That's it.
And it's a wonderful one as well. It is a wonderful one. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, connect with LaQuita. You want to become a part of this 60-day challenge. We'll also have the links for that in the show notes. But again, I appreciate everyone from the LaQuita's Toolbox audience for joining us today on another amazing episode. If you are new to the podcast, please hit the like and subscribe button on your favorite podcast listening platform. Leave us a star rating and also a comment. I love your comments. Your comments let me know the things that I am doing well as letting me know the things that I need to do to improve, because the goal of LaQuita's Toolbox is to provide the listener with tools that will help you grow both personally and professionally. Until next time, guys, I am your host, LaQuita Monley. You guys be blessed and have an amazing rest of your day. Take care and God bless.